Hello, welcome to the video lecture on the story Spectral Speech by C. Ayyappan. We'll begin with a short introduction to the author. C. Ayyappan is perhaps the most powerful voice in espousing the Dalit concerns in contemporary Malayalam literature. His works reveal the intense and raw experiences of caste discrimination and power politics that form the bane of Dalit experience. His narratives are complexly layered to weave haunting tales that explore the political and socio-cultural schisms that dominate the Dalit experience. His major works include Uche Urakkathile Swapnangal that came out in 1986, Nyandugal in 2003, and C. Ayyappanta Kathagal which came out in 2008. Now I'll read the story to you and analyze it. Spectral Speech. Give heed to my words. I am going to speak to you and sift the grain from the chaff in your mind. You lie chained here, and I am the only one left to speak to you. And I shall speak nothing but the truth. I am not interested in the trivial pleasures gained by telling lies. You know why. Today I am just a ghost, a lost soul. What makes me speak is a sense of discontent and a little bit of selfishness. You possess the lamp of consciousness now. The sun's childhood is the youth of your senses, and it's when the sun explodes and melts away in the dark that madness seeps into you like moonlight. I know it's the ignorance about the meaning of a suicide and a murder that hunts down your wakeful moments. Now, be calm. I'm going to line your eyes with the nakedness of truth. Don't bat your eyelids or turn your head. What if my fingernails get into your eyes? First, about my suicide. I had the impression that all of you knew the reason for it. But unfortunately, it's now up to me to teach you the grammar of my mind. It's not a happy job, but I'm doing it now because there's no other way. So as the story opens, we understand that the narrator is a ghost. The ghost of a Dalit girl who has entered the body of her lover's sister. The ghost is here to narrate her story and asserts that she will say only the truth. The truth here is something very sinister, and the imagery also takes on a very chilling turn because the ghost says, I'm going to line your eyes with the nakedness of truth. Don't bat your eyelids or turn your head. What if my fingernails get into your eyes? So the truth is something that is unsettling and something that is uncomfortable, and people may not be able to bear the consequences of knowing the truth. The ghost has to narrate the truth, and she says, I will narrate the grammar of my mind, as nobody else will narrate her story for her. I don't have to tell you, do I, that I was your darling brother's sweetheart, his secret lover. And between your brother and myself, there was everything that was possible between a man and a woman, something that I began at 15, a conduct or misconduct. One day during the monsoon, I came to your house to work on the paddy that was spread out on the attic to be dried. Working on the paddy, I stepped back and was trapped in your brother's arms. I was dazed. I turned and squirmed as I realized the intent of Kunjaku's hand, and then I blushed and turned red under his lips. Climbing down the ladder, Kunju said, by the way, don't tell anyone about this. It was then that I was frightened a bit. I was a dumb, silly girl at that time. And it was that dumbness that made me ask Kunjaku some 6 or 7 years later, will you marry me? His reply was a very honest counter-question. How can I ever marry you? The sense of helplessness in that question pained me. Though I was a primary school teacher by then, no Christian could even imagine marrying the daughter of an untouchable woman who had been a servant in his household. But one evening, when I came back home after meeting Kunjaku, I had reason to feel scared. Amma was telling Achan, whispering in his ear, that one of my cousins had gone astray. Will I too go that way? I felt out of breath. My sense of suffocation was unfounded. Even at that young age, Kunjaku was a smart guy. With the help of Patros, who used to go to the Trishur market with betel leaves, Kunjaku used to acquire the necessary things. But such precautions were really unnecessary, for he did not have in him the ability to offer the gift no woman's body could digest. I realized this ever so slowly when I began to cultivate the wish that I could live and die giving birth to this child and rearing it. On learning about this desire of mine, he spat dirtily and said that he felt nauseated. And then he hit me on my face with a clenched fist. Later, he was quite desperately trying to get me to say I didn't love him. But in vain. Finally, he said he would kill himself and burst out laughing. It was then that I began to think about it. I mean, about suicide. Everything went wrong for me and I found no peace of mind. Everybody knew about the goings on between Kunjako and me. At home, my father beat me up and crushed me to pulp, and at times your brother would throw me out of my house in the middle of the night, and once his needs were taken care of, beat the hell out of me. But far more intolerable were Gobisa's antics. You know, he was my neighbor and he had given me some lessons at home since I had failed in my predatory English examination. He claimed he had begun to love me since then. He was of my caste, not bad looking, and a good man. But the moment I heard he was in love with me, I felt the way I did when years ago, working in the paddy fields, I had a leech cling on to my thigh, growing big with my blood. I didn't have the guts to pluck it off, so I yelled, flailing my arms and legs in utter revulsion. One day, hiding his embarrassment in a put-on jocular way, Gopisa said, "I get the feeling that I should begin to love you." I replied quite harshly, "No, don't bother." Then he said with a touch of vengeance, "That won't give you a pregnancy or anything of that kind." I felt dazed as if I had received a blow. There was no way I could keep myself from telling him the truth, so I said, "There is someone else." "I know," he cut me short, "but that guy doesn't care two hoots for you, does he?" Shaken to the core, I turned and walked away in haste, only to reach Kunjako and ask him, "Do you love me?" He spat out an unalloyed cuss word and bared his teeth. I broke into tears, not because that was the first time he had done so with me, but because at that moment I knew he didn't love me. So the ghost here narrates in harrowing detail how the Dalit woman's body is appropriated by the upper caste man. Ever since her teenage days, Kunjako had been using her body for his pleasure. Though she loved him dearly, she realizes that for him, she's just a body to be used. So the Dalit woman is denied individuality as she becomes a mere receptacle for appeasing the upper caste man's sexual appetite. Even when she repeatedly pleads with him to marry her, he viciously belittles her, insults her, and this reveals the deep-rooted caste politics in contemporary society. Though she is an educated woman and she's a teacher, the upper caste man cannot see her as a respectable individual. She's a sexual object beyond which she shouldn't aspire. That is how he sees her. The ghost also recounts her experiences with Gobi sir, a Dalit man who tries to woo her. She is repelled by his advances and compares the experience to a leech clinging onto her body. So the Dalit woman is here doubly oppressed on account of her caste and gender, as her body is always a site of conflict. It is never hers. See, even if Gobi sir was a very nice man, he also doesn't react very nicely when she rejects him. So none of these men can take rejection. In fact, the women are not allowed to say no. Weeping and weeping, I had my neck caught in a noose. Now let me tell you about how and why your papa killed your dear brother. What I'm saying is that was a good thing he did. Yet I could never imagine while I was still alive that someone would finish him off like that. Well, let it be. What you are unhappy about is the question why your papa did such a thing. Let me now prick and burst the boil of that unhappiness. On the 16th day after my burial, I got out of the grave. I came straight to your house. Kunjako was not there then. Must have gone off to see a late-night movie, I guessed. All right, let him come back. Meanwhile, I came over to your room and found you sleeping in your bed without having turned off the light. I found it quite interesting, the way you lay huddled up, hugging a pillow, your white skirt curled up, revealing your knees. Enter Kunjako. He had a peep into your room, probably because the light was still on. He found you smiling and stood still, dazed. Then he took a quick and anxious look around and started moving in toward your bed, his eyes on your face. It was then that you gave a hearty laugh. He was startled and he moved away a bit and studied the expression on your face. And then, heaving a sigh of relief and with his face flaming hot, he switched off the light. That moment, a certain light pierced into me, and I gave a scream out of fear or helplessness. It shattered your sleep. In a trice, you hugged him. As you got frightened, I got into your body through the fissure it created. Then I began to laugh, and your papa and you yourself in your wakeful moments began to cry. The people around you were amazed, for your whole conduct and behavior were so unusual. You wouldn't leave Kunjako day or night. You haunted him. You couldn't be at peace with yourself without sitting close beside him. And whenever he beat you up, the music of laughter rose on its wings in your wailing. Everyone except your brother was convinced that you were possessed, that my ghost had entered your very being. But your brother thought that you were just plain mad. He had never believed in ghosts and demons and the like, only in madness and rationalism. Some said I should be secretly nailed on a piece of Kanyara wood and taken to the Jotanikara temple. But your papa didn't agree. When your relatives rounded him up and questioned him, he blurted out in desperate anger, "That might help cure the illness. But once she recovers, what if she remembers what she has done, whatever she has done, and then does something terrible?" So the story now becomes even more disturbing as the ghost reveals how Kunjako had abused his sister as well. Rosikuti is possessed by the ghost, and she therefore didn't resist her brother's advances as she is influenced by the ghost's desires. Kunjako's father kills him as he couldn't tolerate this incestuous relationship. Rosie is also not spared as she is also a body, one that arouses the lust of men. In a patriarchal world, women are often relegated to the status of sexual objects, and Rosie is here violated by her brother, which again sets off a debate on man's bestial nature. I was scared of something else. Would Kunjako end up doing something terrible? If he died, how could I savor the smell of his sweat like this? Then I thought of something else that gave me some kind of consolation. If he died, he too would become a lost soul like me, and would not lie down in any church graveyard. Then the two of us could have a good time. But even then, I never thought he would meet with such a terrible death. Your papa is a real saint. Your papa who hacked Kunjako to death as he lay asleep, hugging you who were in chains. But like all saintly acts, this too is difficult to comprehend. Why did he do it? Was it because Kunjako had used your illness to his advantage? I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what I think about it. He did so because Kunjako was in love with me, not with you. Your papa is my father too. It was only after my death that I realized this. Even my amma was not sure of that, probably because your papa's younger brother too had fooled around with her at the time she used to work in your household. It was God who revealed to me my paternity. He called me a sinner whose nakedness had been unveiled by my own brother. I didn't flinch. With true grit, I uttered a severe imprecation and asked him, "How the hell does an untouchable woman become sister to a Christian old man?" And God was literally dumbfounded, as if a banana had been thrust into his mouth. His eyes popped out and he bowed his head. "Well, let it be. Rosikuti, your papa believed that I was your sister. If I put it in God's language, your papa, poor guy, didn't know that even before my mother's marriage, her nakedness had been unveiled by his younger brother as well. You could very well ask why, in that case, he never tried to put an end to my relationship with Kunjaku. In fact, Kunjaku himself told me once that your papa had tried to do so. One day, he put on a devilish face and chided Kunjaku. "Your affair with that untouchable girl, stop it." And Kunjaku, who was shocked to see the expression on your papa's face, told him the truth. "But I am not really going to marry her." The old man was dumbfounded, a banana in his mouth as well. Now you have learned everything, haven't you? It was my nakedness that Kunjaku unveiled. When he hugged you, he was hugging me, for you were I. It was with me alone that he did wrong. And it was that wrong which your papa corrected. That is why he's now in jail, serving a life sentence. Now about my own selfishness in this whole affair. I'm about to move out of you. I was afraid that something dangerous would happen to you if I left without telling you what's what. You should live on, but first you should do me a favor. Fetch our Kannan Parayan and ask him to dig open my grave and place 3 measures of mustard seeds in it. If that's done, I won't be able to get out of the grave, for a ghost cannot get out unless and until it takes precise count of the mustard seeds placed in the grave. And you know it's never possible to do so in the course of a night. I know you are now wondering why I don't wish to go around happily with your brother, who too has become a lost soul. Well, now it seems you have got your doubts cleared. Your face is lighting up. You are now thinking that your brother is mine as well, aren't you? You are wrong, my sister. That is not the point. It was with a lot of expectation that I watched Kunjaku die. I waited with bated breath to be able to move up to his soul that was about to separate itself from the body and to throw my arms around it. But the moment he died, I realized the truth. Kunjaku had no soul. What he had was mere breath or life. Why? Perhaps because he was a rationalist who didn't believe in the soul, or because of the way the Bible babbling God went about crying and weeping and gnashing his teeth. So I have no other choice than to return to my grave. Don't forget the mustard seeds. Here, I grant you my freedom. Look at your feet for proof of my leaving you. Where is that chain? So the ghost now reveals that her mother had been abused by Kunjaku's father and uncle, and she is in fact Kunjaku's half-sister. So the vicious cycle of abuse had been going on for several generations, and the author points out that upper caste men always had a sense of entitlement when it came to Dalit women. In a very potent, very powerful critique of casteist sensibilities, the ghost in the story reprimands the patriarchal upper caste idea of God when she says, "How the hell does an untouchable woman become sister to a Christian old man?" Kunjaku's father tries to stop him from pursuing the relationship with the Dalit girl, and Kunjaku replies by saying that he's merely using her body. And the father is rendered speechless as he sees himself in his son. He himself had that attitude, very cavalier attitude regarding the Dalit woman's body. The ghost now tells Rosikutti that she will be moving out of her body and reveals the truth to the girl as she should live on. So though there are barriers of caste and class separating them, they both are women, victims of a patriarchal society. The ghost concludes her narrative by saying that she tried to unite with Kunjaku's soul, but he never had a soul to begin with. This is again indicative of the soulless actions of upper caste men who pursue pleasure at the cost of other people's happiness. While she was alive, she was mute and helpless. Now that she's a ghost, she has a medium to speak and the power to wreak vengeance. Dalits are never accorded the freedom to narrate their stories, and by portraying his narrator as a ghost, Ayyappan is in fact offering a scathing indictment of a casteist society where the subaltern can never speak while he or she is alive. Let's take a look at the setting of the story. The story internalizes the anguish and despair of a Dalit woman who can speak only after she becomes a ghost. So the story is narrated from the perspective of the Dalit woman, and her memories reveal the bleak life of the Dalits, especially Dalit women. As a Dalit woman who had been denied agency while she was alive, the narrative portrays the ghost emphatically narrating her story. She says, "I have to speak. I have to say the truth." Rosikutti, the upper caste woman, becomes a mute spectator, helpless and bound as the ghost speaks a subaltern story that had been suppressed while she was alive. So the ghost presents the story to Rosikutti and does not seek validation from the society. She says, "Rosikutti, I want you to know the truth because I want you to live on." She is not trying to convince anybody else of what she did or why she is doing it. She says that she wants Rosikutti to live on, and that is why she chooses to give her the truth. We now come to the characters in the story. The first one is the narrator, the ghost of a Dalit woman who is not named. She is not named as she is a symbol of all Dalit women who are oppressed by the upper caste men. As a ghost, she is finally free from the restrictions laid down by the casteist and patriarchal world in which she lived. While she was alive, she remained mute and helpless, a Dalit woman who did not know how to escape from the dire predicament that she was in. Her only solution was suicide. And in the narrative, you see that the death empowers her as she is no longer bound by the rules of her casteist society. She is free to speak. Her voice empowers her. And she even has the courage to question God, who never did anything to help the Dalits. Then we have Rosie Kuti, an upper caste woman who is rendered helpless by the patriarchal society. She remains mute throughout the story. She is a tragic figure as she is violated by her own brother, but she is not allowed to avenge herself. Her father kills her brother and she remains again a spectator. After being possessed by the ghost, she doesn't understand the consequences of her incestuous relationship with her brother. So throughout the narrative, she remains the victim. Now let's take a look at the male characters in the story. First is Kunjako, an upper caste man who is unscrupulous and vile. He doesn't love his Dalit lover and just sees her as an object for sexual satisfaction. He treats her in the most despicable manner and physically abuses her as he feels entitled to her body. He has this notion of ownership. I own her body, so why can't I use her? Why can't I kick her? Why can't I hit her? He is shown as a lecherous man who has no moral compunctions about violating his own sister. And as he is killed, he leaves behind no soul as he was in life a soulless human being. Then we have Gobi sir, a Dalit man who loved the narrator. She was indifferent to him and he tries to warn her by saying that Kunjako will never take care of her. He is resentful of the fact that she doesn't return his love as he considers himself to be an eligible suitor for her. He is again another man who will not take no for an answer. And when she refuses him, he becomes very, very spiteful. Then we have Kunjako's father and God. Both are symbols of upper caste patriarchal ideology. The ghost is shown to be disdainful of both men, because they are representatives of a ruthless system of oppression. And the ghost even says that, see, your father, she tells to Rosikuti, your father murdered Kunjako not because he was in love with you, because he was in love with me. So she hints that the father might have murdered the son not because he had an incestuous relationship with his own sister, but because of the fact that he wasn't ready to let go of the relationship that he had with the Dalit woman. Okay, so she is projecting both the father and the son as upper caste men who are not ready to let go of their casteist mentality. Now we come to the major themes. The first theme is silence of the subaltern. By depicting the narrator as a ghost, Ayyappan is highlighting how the subalterns are denied a voice. When she was alive, the ghost was not allowed to react and was confined in the restricting framework of a casteist society where the subalterns can only suffer in silence. That is the only option that they are given. As a ghost, she is determined to speak the truth, for she wants to narrate her trauma and anguish. So she gets power only after she crosses the threshold of life. The next theme is the sexual oppression of Dalit women. The upper caste men feel a sense of entitlement, ownership when it comes to Dalit women's bodies. Kunjako never thinks about marrying the Dalit girl, and when the question is posed to him, he is genuinely surprised. He doesn't consider her to be someone he can marry. She is only a body for pleasure. So this cycle of sexual oppression had been continuing for generations, and Kunjako's father is aware of the fact that a Dalit girl is his biological daughter. Okay, but he still doesn't care for the girl. He only cares for the upper caste legitimate daughter that he has. So Dalit women are not allowed to resist. They are expected to comply and never complain. I hope all of you understood the story. Thank you.